minutes.
Okay, so how many are surprised that I'm not like this man? I'm 6'5", 370 pound man.
There's no mirror to confirm.
So we do have a name for those people, by the way. We call them morgue rats because they're not allowed to leave the embalming room. It's a real thing, okay? So I kind of want to go over a little bit. I am going to go over a little bit of history in the beginning. And if you're here for the history, let me tell you, it's not exciting. It's religions. And there's churches for that, okay? So I'm going to go over the important things that I feel in the beginning. We will get to the stuff you're probably really here for, and I will explain how an embalming truly works, what we do in the process today, that kind of stuff. If I ask you questions, fine. Please save questions for the end. And at the end, you can ask anything you want, and I will do my best to answer the truth of anything you want to ask, okay? All right, so in the beginning, does anybody know, I'd like to ask this, who invented embalming? Who created it? Who were the first people to try to preserve a body?
The Egyptians.
It was the Egyptians, okay. So, does anybody know how they did it?
They mummified them.
Yes, mummification was only for the rich, kind of like embalming is today. So mummification was really for the wealthy, and the Egyptians were great. They actually were the first people to be like, hey, you really can take a trailer with a hearse. They took all of their crap with them. All of it. They'll take their cats alive. They were nuts, okay? But what they used was a salt. So what they really did was dehydrate your body, okay? Mostly water, it dehydrates. That's why when you see a mummy, they're all the things. While we're talking about dehydration, just a fun fact, your hair does not continue to grow, and neither does your nails when you die. If somebody's uncle told you that, it's not true. You dehydrate, and therefore they live longer, right? For the women, you ever push the cuticle back and all of a sudden there's more nail there? Same concept, okay? So, the interesting thing with embalming when it came to them, the Egyptians, was that they removed all the viscera, all the organs. And now, some people know that, and they put them in canopic jars with a call that each of them contained a different thing. They had the head of Horus, they had all that kind of thing. The idea being, once again, they were going to measure your soul to a feather and Anubis, and if you were pure, which I don't know how anybody can be that pure, you got their version of heaven. The interesting thing with that is how they remove the brain. That's usually what people think of when they think of this. So inside your nose, you have this thing called the cribriform plate. It's very thin. And they would just pop, and they would go in there with a circle, honestly, and they would scoop out certain sections and pull that through your nose. Right? It's gonna be a weird question.
So glad we're eating.
Yeah. Some people got here at 5:45 for that. So, just a weird question. I wonder, has anybody ever felt an actual brain? There's one. Okay. So people don't realize a brain's consistency is right in between jello and pudding. Which is why when you get a head injury, you risk serious everything, right? Brain bleeds, all that stuff. The scalp is really thick. A lot of people don't realize that either. So all that protection, and your brain is a wuss when it comes to your body. It doesn't like anything. It can't regrow things. It really only likes a certain type of sugar. But anyway, I digress. So I'm going to move off the Egyptians. Next one's ancient Greece. They only embalmed to honor. They used oils and resins, really to preserve. Same thing, kind of keep the moisture out, bacteria out, that kind of thing. Really, it's your notable figures that were really embalmed, philosophers, people at the time. You're going to really see a theme of money as we go through this. And then I'll tell you how much funeral costs today, and you'll see the same thing, as I said. So next is the Romans. Okay, Greek tradition, they used embalming teas for the elite. Surprised. Once again, the poor people couldn't afford food, they definitely couldn't afford to be preserved. They had a little more sophistication, they had different aromatics and that kind of thing. You go to the Middle Ages, now we start to get to the rise of Christianity, okay? But they emphasized burial rather than preservation because you were supposed to rise at Judgment Day. So they didn't want to do anything to the body, right? But until what, the 70s, I think, that the Catholic Church even opened up cremation. You know, we can believe that Jesus can make you come back, but he can't build you back there. So that was the Dark Ages. So anyway, so once you get to the Renaissance, that's when anatomy really became a play. So this is when we start to see, body snatchers, people digging up graves and selling things. But with that actually came science knowledge. So right, we start to learn how anatomy truly worked and what it was. You start to get artsy people, and they're weird, right? From New York artsy. And so they start cutting the bodies and doing all that stuff, but it really gave us a lot of science things, which is gonna come into play later on with the embalming stuff. Let's see, they used back then to preserve, they tried a lot of substances, but a lot of what they used was mercury. If you know anything about mercury, besides it's in thermometers back in the day, it's highly poisonous, right? That's Mad Hatter's disease. They used to use mercury in the hats. They wore them, you sweat, you go crazy as a hatter. Well, Alice in Wonderland trivia for y'all. Okay, so 19th century modern, now we're gonna get into this. In 1859, a Russian scientist named Alexander, that's the easy one, Butarov, he discovered formaldehyde. So, does anybody know what formaldehyde is? Right? Besides that you can put it on drugs and smoke it, people think, don't do that. By the way, let me explain what formaldehyde is and why that's dumb. Okay? So over here, I'm gonna break down a little bit of formaldehyde. So, these are my formaldehyde, from strongest to weakest, okay? So what formaldehyde does scientifically in your body is it takes protein in the lowest form, which is an amino acid, and it fuses the nitrogen, cross-links them, removing oxygen. That stops bacteria from eating you, all that kind of stuff. What it really does in the best description, who's ever felt the deceased person? Anybody? Okay, they're a little firmer, right? So the easiest way, which is once again about food, to describe that is the white of an egg. So the way that a protein synthesis works, when it heats up, it is the exact same as it's coagulation. So it hardens. So that's what happens when the formalin and formaldehyde get inside your cell. They cross-link that, they remove the oxygen, therefore giving you preservation because oxygen equals decay, right? It's even how carbon dating stuff works. It also stops bacteria from eating you. So, any questions about that? That's the biggest thing that formaldehyde does that's important. That's how it preserves. Okay. So, Thomas Holmes, during the American Civil War, he invented what we now do as embalming. So it's intravenous, embalming. So he did that during the Civil War. It took hours to do. It was gravity-fed bottle. So literally just a bottle in the sky. I would have loved to have brought one, but we have modern machines now. And then just a tube. And so the higher you went up, the more pressure it gave. Okay? Now, I'm going to switch to a little bit, and I am going to read from this because I am not a Lincoln expert. But he's the one who embalmed Abraham Lincoln after he was assassinated the year of the Civil War. So why that's important is because he had to go all the way back to Springfield, Illinois, from where he was killed. So what they did was they put him on a train, and at every stop, because everybody wanted to see him, every stop they re-embalmed him. So by the time he got up there, he looked like glass. It was weird, is the word. But what was so great about that is the public viewing became not just for the rich. Not just, all of a sudden now, everybody got to see in crowds of thousands that you could do this with your loved one. You could have another minute with your loved one. So it was the first ever really big display in what created the industry that I work in now. So it's a huge deal. He finally got laid to rest over in Springfield, and like I said, it looked like glass. The way he was in a metal sealed casket that they actually bolted down and had glass. That used to be the traditional style. They didn't have to worry about smells then and that kind of thing. Okay. So now, when we get into like the 20th century, the only thing that's really changed is rules. So we used arsenic at one point and it worked really good, but it killed the embalmer. So now we have rules and regulations and OSHA, which I'm in charge of and I hate, so I don't want to talk about that. So when I discussed that, it was all different throughout the thing. Really the big difference is cultural variations in our modern world. I'm going to touch on a few things that I think are important for like the coast. So Asian cultures, they are all about ancestral veneration, right? They're all about honoring their deceased. When they get old, they live with them. They do, unlike us who are like, go to the care home, mama, stop. Yeah, laugh, you see every day. So with that, has anybody ever been to a Vietnamese funeral? We have a large Vietnamese, okay? They typically do, whether Catholic or Buddhist, 3 to 4 days. So it's 3 days of prayer. They're very much similar, kind of constant. They wear headbands. Each color signifies how close you are to the deceased. And they do the rosary, and they'll even play it overnight. They leave the tape playing all night in the funeral home. And the other one's just some Buddhist prayer. So they do that, and it takes days before they bury or cremate. Okay, the next one. So South America and those kind of places, you know, they still kind of go by like Incan traditions. So they still will mummify and stuff, like where they salt preserve. It's unique. So Islamic, Orthodox Judaism, they don't do anything. So story time, ready? We're going to transition to the thing. So we had an Orthodox Jewish family come in. The rabbi has to come in, and he brings his team. They have names. It's Hebrew. I don't speak that. So they come in. The males have to wash the males. The females have to handle the females, right? The way they are, one of the managers that I work with, Kimberly, she went to shake his hand. He said, "I'm sorry, I can't touch you." And she was like, "Oh." And he was like, "No, I don't mean offense. I'm married. I can't touch another woman." So they have to come up into our actual embalming room and wash, and they say a prayer from memory that's like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And I have to be in there, obviously, to watch them. They're placed into a casket that is made with natural wood and resin. It is not allowed to have metal, and they also put a little bit of earth from the Holy Land underneath their pillow. So I'm not allowed to help, I'm not allowed to touch once the washing is done, because they cannot be tainted. It's the word I'm going to use, but it's just where they believe things. So that still exists today. We had a gentleman who was Indian, like Native American Indian, and he wanted to go all natural, rolled up in a natural linen, and then he had to be buried seated facing east. And we did it. Yeah. It's like rolling a giant cigar. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Can't laugh at it. Let me pre-warn, I guess I should have started with this. So to do what I do, to see the things I see, we have to have what I call gallows humor. You all see that meme with James Franco? He's like, "First time, huh? He's being hung." It's like, if we can't laugh and joke, you can't survive what I do. Once again, if you have questions, we talk about it. So today, the way it's going, obviously cremation's on the rise and embalming's on the low end. But then there's these things, and I want to address them because they're dumb. Green burials. I don't know if you have seen where like they freeze people and break them. It's a form of like hydrolysis where they try to break down the fat and all that stuff with freezing and breaking down evaporation. It makes like 4 barrels of sludge, but it's supposed to be green. Oh yeah, that's the word, right? Gross. But it's, for a while there on the internet, they had those pods that people were talking about. I want to put the pod made to a tree. Did anybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm scared. I'm a big old pod. Okay? And when you pass away, depending on the way you die, you have something in your muscles called ATP. And that's your energy. So in a suicide, for instance, the adrenaline just dumps and they get locked how they are. Or in a tragic car accident, those kind of things. So what we call breaking rigor is not actually breaking bones. I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's the idea of loosening the muscles through massage and movement. You ain't moving me. So the pod thing is all a great idea, but it's not. You can also cremate it and sprinkle on a tree, and there you go. Carbon. Okay.
But isn't that kind of illegal?
No.
Since human remains?
No, we can jump to that. So no, I'll discuss the final disposition is the legal word. So I'll discuss that when I talk about kind of the job in a sense. So, which I guess I'll just get into. Thank you for the segue, plant. So what I really want to do this next part is, how many of you, like I said, asked me, how many of you have ever dealt with funeral preparations? Your life's tragic.
I was a funeral director in South Carolina.
Okay, I was like, sure, you had the time.
Embalming funeral
Okay,
director.
so I kind of want to go over what we do in modern day, and then I'll really break down the embalming process through that, because there are 2 sides to this. So in the state of Mississippi, you have to have a 2-year degree to be a funeral director embalmer, or as the flyer said, a funeral service practitioner, because somebody didn't feel fancy enough. In Illinois, you have to have 4 years. In Colorado, you just get to get high and do it, I guess. There's no license. Okay? So it depends on where you go and what you do. So in the state of Mississippi, you have to have a 2-year degree. MGCCC used to teach it. Now if you want to do it, you have to go to Delgado, which is in New Orleans, or you have to go up to Scuba and go to East Mississippi. That's about 3.5, 4 hours away. It is a full-time program. I think there are some online programs now, but you still have to have clinicals and everything like that. So that's just kind of a breakdown of that. Now, to be a funeral director in the state of Mississippi, you only have to do a 1-year apprenticeship, and then you take a little test. But it doesn't reciprocate, so you can't go to other states with it. It used to be a 2-year, they just changed it, and they made a state test. So it's a little different. I always like to tell people, that was like there's funeral director. I can do both. So I was like, hey, we're both doctors, I'm just a surgeon, okay? It's just, and that's when I say don't hurt your arm, pat yourself on the back. But anyway, so the way the whole process works is, a lot of people don't realize this is how I dress day and night. If it's a hurricane, the bridges aren't closed, I'm coming to your house dressed like this. Rain, sleet, snow, doesn't matter. Railroad tracks, bus victim, random, like I said, suicide, anything that happens, we're gonna come out like this. And the idea being, people are like, why are you dressed like that? Can you be more comfortable? First of all, it's comfortable, it's tailored. Secondly, it's the idea that when you see us, you should feel comfortable and that we're professional and we're gonna take care of your loved one. Because at this point, you have to relinquish care, okay? So we call that a first call. It's a form like this. Ours are always green, so we know where to go. It's basic information, name, social security number, the address they're at, where did they pass away, next of kin, that kind of thing, so we can know who to contact. So, when it comes to a body, as I said, you have to relinquish control, right? Legally, a body is considered property once somebody passes away. Bless you. So, when you allow us to take that into your care, we have what is legally called quasi-property. It allows us to take them into our care. Now, to go any farther than that, you have to give us permission for things. So, if we want to do embalming, we have to have permission for that, and written permission too. Because what we do is called mutilation, right? Which means to change what is. I know we see that horrible word, but it's mutilation. Now, it's called mild mutilation because we don't do more than we have to. But you still have to allow us to do that, right? The one thing you can never do in this job and come back from, you cannot cremate somebody who should have been embalmed. It's a fire, you're done. So that's the legal part of that. Now, once we get the call, we bring in the funeral home, we usually call you, we set up a meeting. The funeral directing side is what you would think if some of you have never done it. It's, we meet with you, we build a rapport, we have to build a thing. I was talking to somebody there earlier, back there, he was like, who had those computers, and you guys use computers? Yeah, we still are mostly paper system. And not because we don't have the access to use computer technology, but because we don't get what we're getting right now. When you're meeting with somebody who's lost their loved one, it's the hardest thing they'll ever do in their lives, ever. And so if you came in to meet with me and I'm like, okay, hey, what's her name? And where'd she go to school? And where's this? We have to have a personable time because you need to know, once again, I'm here for you. So I tell people all the time, when they ask, how do you do this? I'm like, look, if I make it 1% easier for you, I've done my job. That's the goal. That's the nights, the weekends, the holidays, the missing kids things. You know, I used to always explain to my son, he's 14 now, so he's got it. When he was young, he'd be like, how come you have to work again? I'm like, well, son, listen, I'm missing your football game, but somebody's never gonna see the bad game. See, it got real somber now, huh? Should I make a joke?
You got that.
Yeah, so, but really, so that's that thing. And so with this job, it's a lot, but it's so rewarding. Now, I'm gonna step away, story time. So, it's not always rewarding. Let me tell you guys a story. I went to a first call at a care home, care facility. Okay, so the person was on hospice. I don't speak Vietnamese, but this lady was in my face screaming. She's like this big. Okay, screaming the same thing to me over and over and over. I have no idea what she's saying. I learned later on she was calling me deaf. Okay? Okay. That's not even the craziest part. The crazy part is her granddaughter's body checks are like talking. And she flops, and 2 men catch her and drag her out. And I'm like, okay. Like, where do you go from there, right? Hey, do you guys want to cremate or embalm? Like, so, back now, sorry. So we see it all. I've been spit at, I've been pushed, believe it or not. It's pretty big to be pushed, but they tried. So we see it all. I've been hugged. I've been trying to be kissed. It's a southern thing. It's kind of weird. Yeah, but anyway, sorry. So once we meet with you, we build a report, we get everything. So we're getting embalming permission. I know that's why a lot of you are here. I have a lot of things here, but I'm going to hand out some, okay? I know you're all older, but I'm going to say this. Don't put things in your mouth. Don't put them in your eyes. And yes, some of them are sharp, so please be careful, okay? And I know you're laughing, they're meant for your mouth and eyes. And I just don't want them to be like, oh, what if? I'm not helping you get it out. I'm telling you that right now. Okay. So embalming. I guess this is my story here. So I had a lady one time call, I don't know how she got up to me in the preparation, we call it the prep room, or the embalming, and asked me how long we hung her husband out to bleed. Not a deer. Once again, throws you off. You're sitting there and you're like, what? You want to be like, what are you doing, lady? Stop. But you're respectful. So I'm like, ma'am, that's not what we do. And she's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, just Google. I'm not explaining. Anyway, so, as I said, see it all. So the embalming process is actually fairly simple with the complications. So we have a table, and on that table, in stainless steel, are troughs that go down the side, okay? Now something that threw me off in embalming school was where the blood goes, which is into a toilet that we flush. It's filtered, you drink it later. No worse than fecal matter, right? Let's be honest. So, with the embalming process, a lot of people don't understand what we do. Is anybody nursing? I've been as a nurse, was a nurse? Okay. So people leave the A lines and big lines, and I've had many a nurse be like, "Do you guys embalm? Do you have them?" Ooh, that would take forever. So, we have a machine. It's a centrifugal machine. It just does pressure. It has a big hose. At the end of the hose is this. It's called the cannula. So we use your vascular system to push the chemical, known as formaldehyde, into your body. So we go in. So typically what we do is, right here, we cut. Okay, so this is a scalpel handle. I use a typical scalpel like anything else. We just don't have to have it sterile. Make sense? I'm not buying sterile blades. I can catch things from them, they can't catch things from me. So what we do is we make an incision right here in the collarbone. Where your collarbone is weak, that's called your sternoclavicular arch. So what we do is we cut along that, and we raise your carotid, your common carotid, and your jugular. Okay? So, yeah, it's gonna get better. So we raise that. So believe it or not, your arteries feel like rubber bands. They're very thick, right? They handle the pressure. They handle that heart pump. Your veins are like 1 cell thick. They're very weak. So we drain out of that. Therefore, we push in, it goes throughout your whole vascular system, and it comes out in the same spot. It's actually a very clean process. Okay? Which reminds me, not everybody poops and pees when they die. And everybody thinks that, people are like, oh, no, they do. Don't get me wrong. But not everybody does, okay? So anyway, so we use your vascular system, as I said. So we put the fluid in, roughly about 3 gallons, depending on that's how much it takes to kind of clear you out. We have supplemental fluid. So I talked about formaldehyde and gave you the basics of it. So I want to talk about other things. So when you're in a hospital, we have a nurse, they pump you full of fluids, right? You swell. So when you do that, we can't really go backwards, right? The joke is I'm a mortician, not a magician. So I can only try to retard things and stop things as I can. So we have specific fluids, like it's called a demyelinator, right on the nose. What that does is that helps dehydrate you. We also can use Epsom salt. It's a dehydrating agent. We can use that, we put it in our tank, and that'll help dehydrate you over time because it's salt's inside of you. Right? Things you don't know. How many of you want to be embalmed? We have water correctants. I have dye. So contrary to see how these are pink? You would think that the idea being, so this is an inactive dye. It's just their color, it's what they do. This is real dye. And yes, it's dye, as in it dyes you from the inside out. D-Y-E. You're already D-I-E. So, don't laugh at that. Don't laugh at that. So this is actual dye. So the problem is when your blood leaves you, so with the ruber, the color, right? Because your blood cells are red. So when that leaves you, we have to put that back so that you look a little more natural. Or we hope you do. It comes in multiple colors too, tan, in case you're a little more tan, these kind of things. So basically, all the supplemental fluids important. So as I said, so I want to put in some tools. So these are aneurysm hooks and aneurysm needle. This is how I dig in your neck. Just like this. And we separate. We're taught things like medial, deep, all that fun science terms. This, on the other end, can you see the little lumen, the little boat? This is called a groove director. So remember I said I raise your vein? Well, people get older and they get clotty. Blood clots, call them chicken fat sometimes. Believe it or not, the most clotted people are usually skinny people who run a ton because they eat so much. Right? They're like, well, I need these carbs and fat because I'm going to run 16 miles tomorrow. Your arteries aren't running 16 miles. So I open your vein up with that, and this goes right in, all the way down, basically. And so from there, I can pin check the clot slowly. And they come out here, and then it's kind of fun. You can pull them and see how long you can get them.
Do you have contests?
I mean, I've never lost. Okay. So as I said, this is the cannula. This is what's actually injecting the arterial fluid into you. They come in multiple sizes also. They come smaller for infants. And they come much bigger for different body parts. If it's an autopsy, for instance, which I will touch on a little bit, we don't do autopsy. Some people think that. I get paid a lot more, and I would have a doctor in front of my name today, and I would act a little sneakier. Okay? So, but we do put them back together. I inappropriately make the joke, Billsbury Workshop. We have to put everything back. Okay? And all of your parts have to go back in. That's just respectful, right? But it doesn't say where. You laugh, but your brain is not going to
It's a giblet bag.
Do they give it to you in a bag?
Yes, it's in a giant biohazard bag. We treat the viscera separate, which I'll get to here in a minute. Viscera is all the stuff inside you. Yeah, it's recent fat, it's my viscera. Anyway, so now we'll talk about setting features. So the idea is to have you look like you're naturally sleeping, right? That's the goal. I'm going to pass some things out. Remember what we discussed. Okay, so first thing first, these are sharp. I don't know if I should pass out a couple, let you guys pass them around. But these, don't get pass that. These are called needle injector tacks. So, you can feel the tip, it's extremely sharp. Pass them back. What I say, you breaking the rules already? Okay. She says it's not that sharp. Let me show you what I do with it.
Let's be extra careful, because if there's an accident, I'm the one that has to file a report. I'm new here.
It just replaced the scarf.
First of all, I asked her permission.
And she said, sure. It's not my fault she let us play sharp things. And Grace, I did not count them, so if somebody steals these, that's on you. Okay. All right, has everybody touched it? Is there verbiage? So I want to explain what that is. So, needle tech injector. So here's how it goes in. Goes in here. Okay. This one's clean and new. I ordered new stuff just for you guys. Don't tell the other please. So this goes in here. I'm not going to do it because I'm about the dentistry. And then right here, and right here in your gums, we do this. Until it hammers into your other process. Right? Okay? That is one way to close your mouth. From there, we close your mouth and we wire it, twist it, and tuck it, and cotton it, and make it look as pretty as we can. Now, we also sew. So, typical SJ needles, kind of one of the best. I'm not handing this around. This is the preferred needle that we use. It's S-shaped. We have curves, we have half moons, all this thing. I prefer this. So when we, this is fun. I never get to do this with eyes and stuff. This is awesome. So when we do this, we go up here, out of your nose, in the same hole and across, out, back down, inside, back through, get as much of this as we can. So the reason this was important is because when we come through these scraped putts, it turns and makes it extremely easy to remove in all these spots. So from there, same thing. 2 pieces of ligature hang out. We don't call it string, it's called ligature. Because once again, some can be fancy. And tie the mouth shut. That's what holds you shut. Okay? There's a few other ways to do that, but that's the main important ones. It does seem kind of brutal when you're being dramatic like I was. But it worked. Next thing I'll pass around for you, I'll touch are eye caps. In your eyes. So these have small grooves you're going to see. They're just round, clear plastic. They also come in oval shape. I prefer the round, and I do the ordering. So they have little bumps on them to hold your eyes shut. Here. Just pass it in front of you.
So when someone dies, do the whole face just like?
Not necessarily, but a lot of times, yeah. But typically, as you pass, your muscles relax. Unless you're back tense, of course, but a lot of times, so, yeah.
Your eyeballs deflate.
Your eyeballs don't do it. You know? Oh, in the movies, excuse me. You know in the movies how they dramatically do that, like my loved one died, they do this thing with their eyes? Yeah, that's not real. Until rigor sets in, you're pretty stuck open. Your mouth, so there's none of this like, so whenever you watch a movie, just go fake, you know? Also, if you watch your loved one die, first thing you do is like, no, but that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, okay? So, now let's assume they don't have teeth, right? Everything I've showed you so far is that they have teeth. So if they don't have teeth, we use these. Much the same as the eye caps. These are called mouth warmers. Once again, pretty right on the head, right? Told you it's only 2-year degree, you guys. You don't have to do that smart. Okay? So, same concept. You're going to notice on these that there's a little rib. That's typically because, not me, okay? I have a weird mouth. You overbite, not underbite, okay? So that's how we know which lip goes top and goes bottom. Now, we can use people's dentures, but a lot of times as people get older, they don't wear them because they're uncomfortable, they hurt, they really start to irritate the gums, so they don't wear them. And that means their gum deteriorates a lot faster. So by the time you get to us, I try to use their denture, and Mama looks like she's Jim Carrey. You know what I mean? And that's not. So we get families who are like, you have to put her teeth in. I'm like, okay. And I use this miracle work. So I'm not putting it in my mouth. You don't either. It's just this simple. It goes here. It covers it. That's all it does, and it goes over the gum line. It gives us a natural mouth shape. If this doesn't work, we use a lot of cotton. The fabric of our lives, we use a ton. Cotton. We use a ton of cotton. We call it web roll because we're fancy like that. But it's cotton. Don't go there. I don't know where it is, but don't do it. Trying to put something in your mouth? Don't do that. Okay. So that's setting features in our basic thing. So, as I said, we use your vascular system, right? So, there's a lot of places your vascular system doesn't touch. Your whole entire enteric system, right? So, obviously we have to disinfect the mouth separately. Then you have your esophagus. Then you have your stomach. All that fecal matter, right? I was making sure that fecal matters in what I do. Don't laugh, don't do it. So anyway, because that's not touched by the vascular system, we have to have a way to clear that out, to clear your bladder out. A lot of times the chamber in the heart will kind of hold some blood. So, you just hold on it, right? So what we use is this. This is attached to a giant hose. This is called a trocar. And whatever you're thinking, it's probably better. So what this is a straw. And we stab you. I'm gonna put this on before I demonstrate. I ripped the shirt before, the wife gets mad. So we stab you here, okay? And we go up and suck out as much as we can. And the idea being, you changing your prearrangement? Yes, ma'am. A hose. So we use a hydrant. It's like siphoning gas. Once I start it, it's just going. So, fair question. We use a hydro aspirator, which basically is secondary to the water, and it creates a vacuum for us. You can also use electric aspirators, but it's been my experience over time, it's like just to catch fire. Not because I don't clean or anything, but yeah, it's a hydro aspirator is what it is. So it sucks all the stuff we can't get out, which would be your poop, your pee, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, we have another one of these that's attached to another hose in this little doodad. It's just a vacuum. So what this does is we put this chemical, they all look the same right now. This is called cavity fluid. So the main difference usually with these is they have acids in them or alcohols and a stronger index to try to dehydrate more inside. Because the biggest enemy for an embalmer is anything that leaks, right? So we have to dehydrate what we can. So this is another thing attached. We go back in the same hole and we just distribute that fluid up and down to try to fill it out. Questions on that? Yeah, it's brutal. This is one of the first things we always make a newbie do. Really, because you find out real quick what you can and can't handle when you have to stab eating meat and start sucking their guts with a hydro aspirator. No, with your mouth. Yeah. So it's anyway. So after that's done, we use this thing. I can pass around if you want. It's very simple. Once again, a trocar button. So it's just got a sharp point and you screw it into the hole that plugs that hole. The main reason we use this and we don't sew it up is because some people have to be re-aspirated. So if you died in a way where you were in a, I don't know, trailer with no AC and it's been 3 weeks, not that I want to embalm you, but I have, you're going to build with gas no matter what I do because you have bacteria throughout you. So one of the main reasons we do that cavity embalming is that although I might have retarded all bacterial growth throughout your tissues, right? If I did a perfect embalming, you would be preserved forever. That's impossible. You might have a bruise, right? You might have some kind of little infection, a paper cut, anything. So that allows bacteria in and so I can't get everything. But so if we have to re-aspirate, we have this little button so we can just remove it real fast and do what we need to do. That's just an easy thing for us. Some things I did bring that we use, like I said, a leaky body is one of our biggest things. That's a problem. We have plastics. They're all named stupid, like pants or shorts. Literally they're shorts, they're called pants. It's just, I don't know, it's just anyway, so we have plastics for everything. One more thing I'm gonna show y'all, because it's like the most dramatic thing that people are like, what, really? Is this. And this is an AV plug. That stands for anal and vaginal. Do you guys know what it does, right?
Yep.
I just want to make sure I don't have to like explain, and I know I've demonstrated a few things, but I'm not doing this. So contrary to popular belief, no matter what once again, the controls, when people die, not everybody gets this. Okay, we don't want to do this either. But some people don't stop leaking. Maybe you have colon cancer. Maybe, right? All those kind of things, so we do this. And it's exactly what you think. Just twist. What was that?
Is it adjustable or is it?
I mean, I guess depending how far I twist. I mean, I don't know if they make them pretty bigger buttholes. Is that what you're asking? This is usually from side, but it does screw. So if you reach the point of not working, I'm not going to go farther. I mean, I'm just being honest. That wasn't a joke. I'm serious. So, but I mean, I've had them like disappear, and you're like, that's not going to work. And I'm not getting it back. So, after that, the body will basically be done. So we typically, if we can, we like to wait 24 hours from embalming because that's how long formaldehyde takes to really cure and set. Now, we are a very large funeral home, okay? We have 9 locations total with cemeteries, and we average around 1,500 cases a year. We do not always have the option of letting them set that long. It's not necessarily better or worse, it just is what it is. Before we aspirate, we do cavity. After that, we obviously continue with disinfecting, and that's just washing again. We use a germicidal, fungicidal, varicidal, everything, okay? It can't grow in the prep room, because we kill it all, including ourselves slowly. So, with that, see my segues? I'm gonna pass on, once again, being a nurse, how many of you ever worn like gloves? Just latex gloves, just regular gloves, right? I wanna hand these up. These are the gloves we use. We don't need what nurses need, which is tactile function. I don't need to feel your vein. I need to not get diseases. Right. So these are really thick. And great for oil changes. Yes.
Hydraulic fluid.
So the idea being these can get caustic on them. They can get, we use things that I use pheno, which is a straight up acid, period. And I use that and it does not go through these gloves. Okay, so it's important that we have this kind of PPE. Wear a lot of other things. We wear smocks that are, chemical proof. We have all sorts of things that are basically meant for just my job because we work with a lot of harsh chemicals. So anyway, so that's the embalming process. Any questions about it?
So do you come out of that?
Yes.
What is it derived from? Where?
Formalin. So the product, it's a gas. So originally it was a gas that was discovered. And then to make it a solution versus just a solid, they added it to things. So we found out what works the best is water and methanol. So alcohol works like the best with it with keeping it held inside. So it's HCHO is the chemical. That's actually what it's called, if you're that nerdy. I'm not going deeper because I'm not. But that's what it really is. So that's how we use it. That's the vehicle that carries it into the liquid form. So what I mentioned earlier, right when I said you've heard people like, oh, just sprinkle it on marijuana, it'll get you extra high. Yeah, because it's removing the oxygen from your lungs. And what do the lungs do? Oxygenate. Dumb. Just stand up fast a few times and pass out. That's just the same concept. So, don't let people think that's a thing because I've never actually seen it or heard of anybody who really does that. I'm sure they exist, but also you have to have a license to buy any of this stuff. Like our funeral home itself has a license that's paid for that allows me to purchase this stuff. Yes.
Do they get stolen?
No. They're locked up in this very specific way. I mean, maybe if one of the funeral directors is trying to get high from spot, I don't know what he's doing. But I've never had to disappear. And I keep stock for that reason mostly. Yes, sir.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen?
We're going to order any questions? That's good. That's Doug, he works with me. So, crazy is relative, as you know. I've told a few stories. Craziest thing I've ever seen. So, a lot of times what people want is the gore, right? Being called death is pretty crazy. I've seen a decapitation. That really throws you off. They're very rare, believe it or not. I was young, I was over 10 years ago now. Walked upstairs. This is stuff I said you might not be able to share everything.
Oh, okay.
Walked upstairs and it's just lady's head in her lap. Now, your body can't process that, right? We've seen a lot of shows. And it throws you off. Now, we do have to reattach that head. She was embalmed. So they did want her whole. So obviously high neck, long sleeve. So what we do is we embalm the head separate from the body. And then we use a dowel, some form of rod, to attach into the suture.
Like a dummy, basically.
Sure. I've never done a dummy like that, but yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of like labor on a cake.
Yeah.
Well, let's move it there, but I like it. Craziest thing, let me see here. Man, I can tell you all the worst call I've ever been on if you want to hear a story. So, a little younger Justin, a little more prideful, confident, better shape. We got a call from the police, the Biloxi Police Department, to an apartment, and the officer on duty was like, hey, you're gonna need to bring a hazmat. And I was like, what a loser. I need a hazmat, I got shoe stocking things that go over, I got this. I rolled up to the apartment building and smelled it. And I went, oh, I'm dumb. So I went over to the officer. I said, hey, this is not bad. He said, no, it's okay. We were pretty close to the funeral rush. So I went back and got my hazmat stuff. I was with a gentleman. We go inside, and it sounded like a helicopter was in there. Right when I walked in the door, it was because of the bugs. Everywhere. So the officer asked me, is he a black gentleman or a white gentleman? Or hey, we can't tell. I said, I'll let you know when I know. So my joke I would tell you is if you're over 65 and male, don't go poop. Because that's how people die is pushing. So he was on the toilet. And he had tried to use the restroom, had some form of, I'm assuming a heart attack, I don't actually know that answer. And he had fallen forward into a frog position. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Hands out. So the only reason I could tell his ethnicity is when I pulled his arm off, he moved a little bit and behind his knees didn't get oxygen like we discussed. So he didn't get oxidized. So I could see his skin color. The rest of him was completely decayed. And it just falls apart. It was the worst call I've ever been on. I've been on some interesting ones. I've had to pull people into tubs and all that kind of stuff. But crazy's relative. I've seen people who are just rude, mean, ugly. You know, you tell them, hey, I'm sorry. Like, why are you sorry? I said, well, because I understand what you're going through. I don't do this because my name's on the building, right? I lost somebody too, and then they told the name was me and pushed around there, right? Anyway, any other questions? Come on, you gotta have something. Oh yeah.
Is there a time limitation between when someone died versus like when you can embalm them?
Conditions really matter in that situation. Sepsis. So sepsis is poisoning the blood, okay? Mostly bacteria. So the way I describe that to families when I have to talk to them is the village has a well. So your blood system's the well, right? The rest of your body parts are the village. When the well gets poisoned, everything dies. So when you pass away and you're septic, that means bacteria is already in your bloodstream and it has free reign of your entire body, which means you decay infinitely faster. And once again, as I said, I can't go backwards. So the faster we get to that situation, it'll be a lot better. Also, air conditioning matters, right? Do you live in a nasty house and bugs are in there? Do you have animals? Story.
I
So,
can imagine it.
typically, big dogs will not eat you, typically, because you treat them differently. They're a dog, right? Ain't nobody carrying their little Chihuahua Mastiff in their purse. So you treat little dogs like they're your buddy, they're higher than you, right? Your dogs need a pack order. So little dogs are lap dogs, and you treat them, and they can nip you, and you like, stop it because it doesn't hurt that. All these things, they will eat you. And they eat soft material first. So they eat your lips. Cats, in my couple of experiences, eat women from a different area. Yeah, cats are nasty. I mean, a cat and a dog. The cat don't give a good about you. It's like, what? But they eat the soft tissues first because that's easier for them. So with that story, we had a passing once. I went and the coroner did say, hey, the dog got to him. And I'm like, okay. And you walk in and there's a dog, like on the patio. And you're like, that's weird. It was a pug, by the way. Just a pug. So I walked in, and I'm gonna be real with you, it looked fake, right? Because like I've seen The Walking Dead, that's the best example. And what I realized as I'm staring at this is, it's not fake, Walking Dead's just that good. Seriously. It was that, and it ate the lips. So it was just teeth and gums. Okay, but the dog lived. I don't know what they do with the dogs, don't ask. Does it have a taste for human flesh? I know you're thinking, no, probably not. Maybe not. You guys test it. Anyway, what you guys gonna do? How many say about?
So if we had tamed like a 5,000-year-old, the wealthiest pharaoh from back then, and compared it to one that you did 5,000 years from now, it looks better.
Mine. Yours like you did it. Yours would suck. No, I'm the best. No, it's ours would look much better. But just because of the chemicals we use today, they use salt, so you're still gonna have that shape. You've seen a mummy, and you've seen probably when they open it, it's like skin, right? It's very papery. I have seen, they're called disinterments, where we have to pick somebody up that's been dead for 30, 40 years, and they're still very human shaped and normal. We did one time, he'd only been buried for 5 years. He was almost perfect, except for he had perfect bacterial growth on his cheek in the shape of a kiss. Right? All the women are like, oh, and they're like, oh, you kissed a dead person? So, yes, no, really. So, because of our chemicals, how much better they are, ours will look better. But that's just, technology and, in the future. So, does anybody want, oh, go ahead.
So after someone has been embalmed, how long is it before their body starts to decay and degrade?
Once again, conditional. So, different cemeteries have different rules, and some require a vault, which is basically just a giant container for the casket. Some people are very naturey, right? Natural. They're like, I want a wood casket, I want to go on the ground, I don't want any of that. Some people are like, nope, I want my casket to seal. I want like a zinc strip on the bottom that absorbs moisture so no rust can get to it. I don't want nothing to touch it. So it really just depends and how you pass and how you, but usually you have a good amount of time. You'll start to decay, of course, pretty rapidly. I mean, it's hot, humid, you know. Vaults, by the way, became a really big thing on the coast because Katrina. We wash things away and people, caskets, especially if they're sealed, they're big pockets of air. And air floats. If you're down here, you'll float too.
It's like poltergeist.
Yeah, well, I was going with it.
Does the condition of or the composition of the soil that the coffin is put in during burial, does that make a difference on how long it will last?
I have no idea. Thank you for your question. I would assume a lower water table would matter, obviously, because once again, anything with water is going to slowly dissolve you faster. You know, a lot of what we bury in here, you get down to red dirt, and that's pretty solid. It does not have to be 6 feet, by the way. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 6 feet. That's just an old adage. So, you know, I'll just give you some random facts that I'm kind of fun. Does anybody know why it's called a wake? It's really, once again, simple. You could have been in a coma. So they had a party around you. It's your last chance to wake up. Right? Flowers at a funeral. Because bodies stunk. Used to be in your house. Embalmers used to go to your home and embalm there and you think, man, how much better charge for that? Anyway. OSHA, you guys. OSHA. Yes, ma'am.
Why are we also afraid of death then? I'm just thinking about that because we used to have death around us all the time. Not when I was a kid, but maybe like in Victorian time.
Yeah.
But now it's all tucked away neatly and nobody's.
I mean, I can only give you my personal opinion on that if you'd like it.
Yes.
So, I think, A, loss of religion. It's also one of the biggest things that's hurting my own business, my job. I feel like I'm the last of the breed of embalmers. To be honest, I don't feel like a lot of you, I'm sorry, Chuck, I know you want to do this. I don't feel like the next generation's really going to have much to do. They're changing laws all the time, so I think that's one of them. Also, we used to live a lot less. You had to be used to it. Babies died, I mean, way more than they do now. Like, almost guaranteed, you were lucky. So I think we've just gotten used to it. Now we have everything to make death stay away. You can fight cancer until you are rotten yourself. Because you just want to live, even if it's horrible. I don't think it's just my personal opinion, Joe. But, right, they can say you have a year to live and you can live that way pretty healthily, or maybe you can last 3 years and it's miserable. And some of you have probably seen that. I have a father who's lived with cancer. Chemo was horrible. Thank God he beat it. But I mean, so I think that we've been able to push it long enough that we want more and more and more the American way. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What, oh, you have yours.
Oh, he had his hand up.
Does the material of which a casket is made determine body decay?
Absolutely.
So like, wood is gonna, you know, obviously unless it's treated, it's gonna break down.
Of course. So most caskets are treated. But as I talked about with Islamic and Judaism, they're not. That's raw wood, unembalmed. So they go right in the ground. That's going to deteriorate way faster. It's going to be way more of a natural burial, which is what they're going for. We sell caskets, like I said, that have a strip underneath that draws moisture in and it rusts before the casket will. We sell stainless steel vaults. Copper. The sky's the limit.
Sorry, I ain't agree on this one.
No, that's what you got.
What is the prep, if any, for cremation?
Okay, and I was going to ask if anyone wanted to hear about cremation. So cremation's a lot simpler. There are some rules. We have to have a rigid container for transportation to and from the crematory. That's not only for ease, obviously, but also for respect. You know, you don't want to just be kind of keep people around. It's awkward. Yeah, it's just not dignified. Just like in the prep room, we keep you covered at all times. We still have dignity in what we do. So with cremation, it's very simple. We have 3 retorts. They're all in D'Iberville. They're all basically brick pottery ovens, like they're just brick ovens. It takes around 4 hours to 5 hours to fully process a human body. So you don't all the way melt. Your long bones, femurs, humeruses, and skull mostly don't melt in the heat. Those are ground. That's how I'm sure you've heard the stories of funeral homes that get caught using like wood dust or wood ash. That's because you ever felt that it's called soot and it's super soft and silky. Cremated remains are very coarse because they have bone in them. Yes. So once we grind them, they cool off, they go back to you. It's really that simple. Now, to go back to what somebody said earlier, so the final disposition thing. So when we do a burial, that's considered final disposition. That's the legal term, which means that we're done. So you have to have a license to do that. Cremation's the same way. So once cremated, you can be scattered anywhere, not Disney. That's illegal. They do ask, and there are rules to like waterways. You know, they don't want you dumping like where people play and that kind of stuff. You're supposed to go out a little bit. The Coast Guard will do sea burials here. You have to go a certain distance out. It has to be a certain depth, which means you gotta go even farther here.
Or even Carnival Cruises, 12 miles off.
Yeah. And then you have to have a certain type of casket. They have to drill holes in it because you have to go to the cave, people have to eat you, or the fish have to eat you, you can sink, and all that kind of stuff. So there are those. I've never done one, but yes.
Are there any limits to what people can put in the casket with you here? So in England, you're not allowed, you can only use natural fibers.
No, we don't have that all. So we do pay, like with embalming, for instance, people don't realize with the EPA, we have to pay. So everybody that's embalmed, we have to report whether or not they use the chemicals because those go in the ground and they're poison. So we have to, it's the United States government. We just pay. So we pay the EPA like every other funeral home in the country. So there's no rules to that, but that does bring me back to my first ever, we discussed it. I'll get to you in a second. So my first ever funeral service was a lively one, okay? Young man had died in a terrible accident, and they had a party. So remember, I'm younger. I walk into this party. They've got balloons taped to pews, and they're raging. They're playing music. It was crazy, y'all. It was like the start of like the Lord of the Rings, and the next song was all curse words, and I'm like, is this normal? Like this ain't. But I thought it was. When they left the parking lot, it was nothing but beer cans. They were putting drugs in the casket. I didn't see anything. I assume it was just. I hope it was just normal. But they look sneaky up there. Okay, is my point. So yeah, there's no real rules, but yeah, that first time I couldn't believe it. I haven't seen anything like it since. You had a question.
Oh, yeah, the pacemakers.
Yes. So we do remove pacemakers for cremation because they explode. And it's not that they can necessarily hurt anything, they can damage, I guess. It's because they release radiation because they're a battery. And so if you're a crematory operator, you've been working there for 25 to 30 years, you slowly get radiation poisoning. There's also those little pellets, you got bladder cancer, that kind of thing that they put in there. If you get that, we cannot cremate you for a good bit.
75 years. How about like a titanium?
That doesn't melt. You take that out, you should donate if you don't want it back. People do want things back. We've cremated a guy's leg that he had to get amputated because he was Catholic and he wanted it all with him when he died. Just the leg. I tried to.
So, like, for my grandma's funeral, she was more alive with the casket than she was dead alive. So I'm assuming it was the dye, but like.
Probably. And makeup, so I don't really cover that, but that's the ending part. So we obviously dress and casket people. Believe it or not, we cut your clothes. It's very hard to put clothes on somebody who's stiff. If you ever dressed a toddler, it's way harder. What we do, okay? So we usually cut the back of clothes and drape over, and it allows us to tuck because people that have cancer and they lose 100 pounds, want to be in their old military uniform. Y'all try to put Justin in his military uniform, it's coming to here. Okay? So they want that. Oh, we had a lady who was she was a queen of a ball and wanted to be in her gown from the 80s. You gotta stop playing, she was like 93. Well, how do you wear gowns at Mardi Gras, right? Tatas, I was like, no, ma'am. I had to cut her little dicky out the back and make her a little top. But yeah, so yeah, but the makeup we use, and I mean, some of the men maybe I don't want to judge, but the women, the makeup you use is thermogenic in nature, so it melts with your body heat to help blend and that kind of stuff. Well, obviously, when you die, you don't have heat, you don't have oils, so sometimes you'll see people who are like, oh, they look kind of oily cakey, right? Okay. Well, that's because we might have had to. You know, I tell people this all the time, and people are like, oh, she just doesn't look like herself. I'm like, well, how many times have you seen her dead? Right? But really, if they're bruised and that kind of thing, we have to do a lot of makeup work for that. We have to use yellows and greens to cancel out the black, right? We learn that stuff in school. So that's why sometimes it looks cakey. Sometimes we get blessed and lucky, and yes, like you said, people, that's the goal, right? There's nothing better as an embalmer when a director comes upstairs and like, dude, the family cried. They were so happy that she looks. You're like, yes.
It was just like,
Yeah.
my entire life, she was always super pale, and then at the funeral, she was like, kind of dark. Not like deep bosom dark, but like, she looked like she had color to her skin.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, maybe dye and makeup. You know, we use reds and dye and makeup. I mean, we have a lot of tips and tricks. I just don't do hair.
Well, I was gonna mention that, I had a stylist who was also a good friend, and she used to go to funeral homes and work, you know,
Yeah.
with the hair clients.
Well, and a lot of older women especially have had the same hairstylist for 50 years. And they'll come in and do their hair all the time. Yeah. We have a person who works specifically with us who's a hairdresser. So if you wanted somebody's hair cut or done, we pay her and she comes in and does it. So, any other questions? I know we're going over here. Yeah, what you got?
If somebody ate a bunch of like uncooked popcorn kernels and then requested a cremation.
I wouldn't hear it. It's sealed up. I mean, it'd be exciting. Go for it. You come to, I'll remember you. I'll record for your family. You'll go out with a bang. Somebody's got to be the first, right? I imagine before you pass, you're just going to poop up the kernels, okay? And then you know what I have to use? I don't want to judge, but I don't know how many screws. What you got?
Oh, I was gonna ask about, in Mississippi, I know the state laws are so different.
Yes.
In South Carolina, to do removals, there had to be a dual license funeral director and embalmer
No,
present for removals.
not here.
Not here, do you have like a buddy system or whatever?
So if we go to a residence call, we always have 2 people.
Okay,
If we go to a facility that's not a care home, in Mississippi, you can turn your home into a care home.
huh,
Like go to your house and just take care of sick people and all that stuff. It's kind of a weird thing and they're not all nice. Some are very nice, but so when we go to a facility, now don't get me wrong, like I said, I'm not carrying over 370 pounds. If I died in the hospital, you probably want to bring somebody. So we do have rules for that, but yes, when it comes to residences, we always bring at least 2 people. Especially here, you can be on stilts
yeah.
with no elevator. If you can afford the house, you put an elevator in. Do you understand me?
Most people who can afford those houses put the elevators in because they're eligible.
I know. And then they tell me, no, it's too much weight on it with that person. I'm like,
It's not a.
Yeah, that's a fair question.
People elevators.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Yeah, because I know other states, like I said, Illinois, you use a 4-year degree, and you actually have to be dual licensed in Illinois to own a funeral home. You don't have to be.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a couple of different degrees that you can own a funeral home in
Yep.
South Carolina.
Yep.
Not saying that South Carolina always abides by the law, because
Yeah.
I work for, not the best place. But I was asking about the buddy system because I've been flung over a stretcher whenever
Mhm.
a heavier person snaps.
We've had people, we've had cots break, unfortunately. And people go down. I mean, you're trying to hold this person, you're kind of just getting it. Because the cot system works with just a handle, so you lift up it, wheels come down. So we can adjust, you know, we're not AMR, we ain't got one of those cool wee.
Yeah, it's like it's.
Try carrying that up 3 flights of stairs, that thing weighs like 600 pounds. But no, so yeah, we usually go together, unless it's me. I can do one thing else. Not stairs, that's terrible. But, no, that's fair. Yeah, the laws are different for each state, you know, like even for Louisiana, it's different to go there than to come back. But they've changed those laws, as I said, when I say embalming is slowly starting to die, in my opinion, well, in fact. It's because the rules are changing. You know, it used to be you had to be embalmed to cross the state line. Now, as long as you're within refrigeration within 24 hours of death, and you're not traveling more than 24 hours, you're usually good. And then COVID really hurt us. A lot of people passed and were forced to not have funerals for like years. And so, although we offered free memorial service, whatever you needed afterwards, not many people took us up on it. will tell you this, I mean, I know we gotta kind of close here, but I will tell you this, it just as the director, who's done this for a long time. If you want to be cremated or embalmed with a traditional service and you want to have an open casket and that kind of thing, remember that the funeral is not for you. You're deceased. The funeral's for the living. And people always like, especially men, put me in a pine box. I have a pine box, it's $7.95. But what they don't realize is this is my speech I give my families. So when you have a funeral or a memorial service or anything like that, you have an open wound, right? They say wounds heal over time. They still scar, they still hurt. We have an open wound. So everybody gets to come in and be like, hey, I'm so sorry for your loss, and this, I'm here for you. If you don't have a funeral, every time you're in Walmart, a new person rips that Band-Aid off and it never heals. They go, oh my God, I heard about John. And you're like, yeah, that's what I want to talk about in the ice cream aisle. And it happens for months to years because you didn't give people the opportunity to love you. And that's what people understand about a funeral. The cheapest part of a funeral is the service, okay? And so just spend a few $100s to let people love you. People do not get that. I know it's hard and it sucks to shake hands. I've done it, that's why I do what I do. And if you want to hear my story, I can tell you, but it's not a good one that got me into this industry. But yes, let people love you. That's all they want to do. Yes.
Honestly, like with that, like my grandma, she was 93, and she was crazy. She was crazy.
Crazy, not good looking. I got
The
it.
best way that we did was get all the tears out
Yeah.
at the funeral and then go home and celebrate like,
Absolutely.
her life.
That's what we do.
Absolutely.
Have celebrations of life.
Of course, we're all gonna die young. You know, but people miss you and they love you, and even if you don't feel like it, and I know you're not the young crowd, usually at the high school I do fentanyl talks and stuff, which is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I mean, Doug asked earlier, what's the craziest thing? The hardest thing I've ever had to do was tell a family they couldn't see their son because he thought he was taking a Xanax that he bought illegally, and it was pure 100% pressed fentanyl. He took it and was dead within 3 minutes, and they didn't find him for 4 days in his car. People shopping around with him, so unfortunately, I kind of knew I had goosebumps. You can't see it. It sucked so bad. It'll make me emotional. Because how do you tell a mother, I'm a dad, it's different. Guys, it's different. How do you tell a mother you can't? Because I legally can't tell her that. But I have to do everything in my power to get this lady to understand I'm not trying to do anything but save her from what she's gonna see. And thank God I knew her a little bit, and so she was trusting me. It's not always that way. And we have waived issues.
Were you able to involve me?
No. So, just to answer that question, somebody asked about how far we can go. We can embalm. The vascular system's the last thing to go. We can embalm really late, but I can't go backwards. If you're bloated, rotten, and green, I can't help you. There's nothing I can do but chemically pour acid on you to try to harden your outside, right? You know what I'm saying? And then do makeup. And you're still gonna have smells, and there are tips and tricks, but like I said, cheesy joke, but mortician, not magician. Can't go backwards.
That's a closed casket.
Yes.
Or cremation.
Yeah, or cremation, yeah. Any other question, Joe?
Longest blood clot stopping.
There. He must have weighed like 155 pounds. He was a runner. Their hearts give out. Your heart's a muscle too. I'm not saying don't run, okay? Contrary to what you see, I don't run either. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying don't run, I'm saying that, you know, it's illegal. But yes, I've seen blood clots that are crazy.
So I used to do a lot of search and rescue or search and recovery. And so I was there to locate the individual to be recovered, but I had never participated in any of the recovery aspects. So I was wondering, how do you deal with somebody who's like really bloaty and falling apart?
Bags. So we have that obviously, we're on the coast. People drown, boats go down. You know, and we usually are in bags. If we have to embalm, which we have before, especially if you have to transport, you use a very, very high index. The higher the index, which is a strength, so like this is energized, this is extremely strong, it's a 36 index. So use as much of that as you can to try to dehydrate every tip and trick you have. You surface treat. If it's not going to get all the way, we hypo, which is injecting into areas like you would think of. We do everything we can. do what you can, you hope for the best. But once again, I can't stop the bloating and the gas and the, the stuff that got in, especially in the bayous, that water's not exactly the cleanest in the mud, and they're drowning, so they inhale, and yeah, it's just, it's not pleasant. And those are the hard ones too, because, what if you're a traditionalist and you wanted to, and you can't do anything that you want to do? Anything else? Sorry, right on the somber note. Yeah.
Caskets pop.
Like explode?
Yeah, crack, break.
The bombs. Yeah, so obviously a wooden casket can break if you drop it. As I ever have, but I've heard stories. I did drop a casket one time, so just a lid. But, so no, I know they talk about the cabin pressure. So when we send a body on flight, it goes underneath and where your luggage goes, and it ships just like that. We caskets have the end of it has what locks it. Okay, we can leave that off, and it has a valve in there. It's a Burke valve. You tend to leave it just lightly locked, but it's a Burke valve, so it has to do that for gases too, just because they'll expand. But no, I've never seen like ball bears carrying out. I don't think it's not a submarine.
Are there any diseases that you have to do?
Creutzfeldt-Jakob, CJD, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. It's basically it's mad cow for humans. So it's actually one of the legal things, if I remember correctly from school, it's been a few years, that we are allowed to deny. It's one of those things that most of the time if you had it, people think it's dementia or Alzheimer's. It's just very fast onset, it seems. They don't usually test for it, so the odds of me working on it probably have. But it has to be treated a very special way. Even in cremate, our crematories don't go hot enough to kill it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
nasty germ.
Yeah, it's called CJD. You can look it up and read about it. It's Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or Southern Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. But yeah, so you can look that up. It's very interesting. It's scary.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's why I passed on the glove. What we do is we try to protect ourselves from everything, and that's what people. Our goal is not for anything but to protect. Now, have I been covered in gore? Sure. It is what it is. I've been peed on. I've been dancing that. Had it all, y'all.
If you have children, you get peed on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that wasn't even a funeral story. Yeah, so you see it all in this job and more. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm curious. You may not know this. Have they ever done an EPA study of a cemetery?
I'm sure they
See
have.
if any of those chemicals have leached into the.
I can guarantee that's been done. You can probably look that information up.
And do you have any idea how long those chemicals actually survive
I don't. It might be.
before they're compromised?
Oh yeah, Doug does.
35 years.
35. And I guess it would depend also on what the chemical is. Like formaldehyde should be, that's a long time. Yeah, so you can look that up. Once again, each cemetery has different rules and that kind of thing. So
And I understood at one time in the South, and they still do, they had to have that vault thing put over the casket.
yeah, so
So
each
it's
cemetery,
vault,
yeah, it depends. Certain cemeteries require vaults still to this day. It's not just for water, as I discussed. It's also because if you have a wooden casket over time, it rots, deteriorates, and it can collapse, and that risks injury because cemeteries are meant to be visited by people, or they go to dig a grave and they drive the tractor over, and it collapses. So some of these cemeteries still require vaults. All right, y'all. We're going way past time. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you all for coming. I hope it's informational. I do have cards up here. If any of you guys have any other questions, my email's on there. You're welcome to grab one.
Thank you.